let's be honest. We all like to think of ourselves as good people, right? Moral, honest. But what if I told you that, given the chance, almost every single one of us will cheat? Not in some big dramatic way, but just a little. Just enough to get a small advantage. Today, we're diving into the surprising psychology behind why we lie, and we're going to meet the little fudge factor that lives inside all of our heads. So I'll ask you straight up, how honest are you? And I mean really honest. It's a tricky question, isn't it? Because we're about to look at some research that shows the unsettling truth is most of us are just honest enough to not feel bad about ourselves. And this gets to the heart of it, a quote from behavioral economist Dan Ariely. He basically says our irrational side isn't a random glitch. It's not a mistake. It's a built-in, predictable part of how we operate. And understanding this predictable bug in our own software, well, that's the key to figuring out why we lie. Okay, so before we get into our irrational minds, we first need to understand the old school, very rational theory of why people commit crimes. For a long time, economists had what they thought was a pretty simple, logical explanation for dishonesty. They called it the simple model of rational crime, or SMORC for short, and it pretty much assumes that we're all walking calculators. Before we do anything dishonest, we supposedly run the numbers in our head. What's the reward I get from this? What are the chances I get caught? And if I do get caught, how bad is the punishment? If the potential reward outweighs the risk, we go for it. Sounds simple, right? It sounds neat and tidy on paper, but think about it for a second. Is that really what's going through your mind in a moment of temptation? Just a cold, hard calculation? Well, the research points to a much messier story. So, to figure this out, Dan Ariely and his team came up with this really clever experiment. They wanted to see what really makes people cheat when they think nobody could possibly find out. So here's how it went down. They brought people into a room, gave them a sheet with a bunch of simple math puzzles, and said, you have 5 minutes. For every one you solve, we'll pay you. Pretty straightforward. But here's the twist. It was all about how they were graded. And this is where it gets brilliant. The first group, the control group, had to turn in their worksheet to the experimenter, who would check their answers, so absolutely no way to cheat. But the second group, they were told to grade their own work, walk over to a paper shredder, destroy the evidence, and then just tell the experimenter how many they got right. A perfect, risk-free chance to lie. So first things first, what's the baseline? When people couldn't cheat, when the experimenter was checking their work, the average person solved about 3 puzzles. Okay, remember that number, 3. Now for the big reveal. What happened when people had the chance to shred their answers and lie without any consequences? Well, the average score they claimed jumped up to 5.5. People were definitely cheating. But here's a really weird part. No one claimed to solve all 20 puzzles, even though they could have. Why on earth not? This one result just blows that whole simple model of rational crime out of the water. I mean, if we were truly rational, we would have maximized our profit, right? We'd say we got all 20 corrects and walk away with the most money. But people didn't. What we're seeing here is tons of people cheating, but just by a little bit. So what is going on? This bizarre result points to a totally different idea. It's not about a simple cost-benefit calculation. It's about a psychological game we play with ourselves. And this is where we get the fudge factor theory. It suggests there are 2 forces pulling at us all the time. On one hand, yeah, we want the benefits that come from cheating. A little extra cash, a better grade, whatever. But on the other hand, we have this deep desire to look at ourselves in the mirror and see a good, honest person. And this is the whole game right here. We're trying to have our cake and eat it too. We cheat, but only up to a certain point. A point where we can still rationalize it, where we can still tell ourselves we're a good person. That personal limit, that's your fudge factor. We bend the truth just enough to benefit, but not so much that it breaks our own self-image. So, okay, why is this so important? Because just knowing that this fudge factor exists inside all of us is the first step. It's how we can start to understand our own weird behaviors, and maybe, just maybe, make better choices. When you understand your own irrationality, you start to see why some things work. Think about it. Why do things like honor codes work? It's because signing your name to a pledge right before you take a test acts like a little regulation on your fudge factor. It reminds you of your desire to be an honest person right at the moment of temptation, and that helps shrink the amount you're willing to cheat. So the next time you're in a situation where you could bend the rules just a little bit, remember what's happening inside your head.
It's a tug of war. We want the prize, but we also want to feel good about ourselves. And the real question isn't if we cheat, it's how much we let ourselves get away with and why.